protection. Google it, and you'll see what we mean. It's a tropical rainforest environment that's absolutely gorgeous. This prize includes airfare, luxury accommodations, a breakfast each day, a $100 spa credit, and more. No donation is required, but we hope you'll make one when you call and get entered automatically into our grand prize drawing at 866-24/7 WLRN, or log on to WLRN.org.
Public radio is a place where good writing and the well-chosen words still matter. It's a place where civil discourse carries more weight than volume, and it's a place where being inquisitive and open to ideas is a requirement, not an afterthought. They're the reasons you listen to WLRN, and we hope they're the good reasons for you to give right now. Give as generously as you can. We're waiting to hear from you. It's the first day of our on-air fall fundraising campaign. We want to thank all of you who contributed early. Now we're waiting to hear from you. 866-247-9576, WLRN.org.
A $500 Amazon gift card in the offing today only. This is a drawing that's taking place when we suspend fundraising on air at 1 o'clock this afternoon. $500 in Amazon merchandise, which ranges from, drumsticks to range hoods and everything in between. Could be yours, and I can tell you that because I have personally partaken. WLRN.org. 866-247-9576.
And this morning only, we have this generous challenge grant of $10,000 from the estate of Bernard Gewirtz, which means that every contribution made until we reach $10,000 is matched dollar for dollar. So your $100 pledge is another $100 in our coffers. You get the idea. $5 a month, we get an extra $60 in our coffers, everything up to $10,000. Thank you, the estate of Bernard Gewirtz and your entire family. 866-247-9576 to make that donation and have it matched, or online, WLRN.org.
And just think about the stories you've heard already this morning on Morning Edition. And coming up in just a little while, we'll get the details on Jeb Bush's health plan, which he revealed yesterday. What's in it? Is it realistic? And what does it say about his priorities? That's coming up in Morning Edition, the kind of story that you're supporting right now with your call at 866-247-9576. Or that donation online at WLRN.org.
And again, we suspend fundraising today at 1, and before that, right after that, we're going to be giving away a $500 Amazon gift card. When you make your contribution, you're automatically entered into that drawing. Chances are very good that you could be the lucky winner. It'll go a long way. Hey, Christmas is coming. You can make your Christmas shopping. Simple. 866-247-9576 to make that contribution as generously as you can. Online, it's WLRN.org.
And when you make a contribution, you've made twice the contribution this morning, thanks to the family and the estate of Bernard Gewirtz, doubling your pledge amount this morning. Any amount up to $10,000 doubled right now. So you can do that extra bit of good when you call 866-247-9576 or join us at WLRN.org.
You can get creative this fall at the Boca Raton Museum Art School with daytime and evening classes in drawing, painting, poetry, pottery, photography, and jewelry. More than 100 art classes for adults and children begin the week of October 26th. You can find the complete schedule at bocamuseum.org/art school. That's bocamuseum.org/art school. The time is 7:33.
Support for NPR comes from NPR member stations and from CFP on behalf of certified financial planner professionals committed to the highest standard in personal financial advice to help plan for major life events and reaching financial goals at letsmakeaplan.org. From the Lemelson Foundation, committed to improving lives through invention in the U.S. and developing countries, on the web at lemelson.org. And from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, helping NPR advance journalistic excellence in the digital age.
We're funded by WLRN members and by Dr. Howard Routman, a shoulder specialist dedicated to your care. More information on the non-surgical and surgical treatment of the full spectrum of shoulder disorders at myshoulderspecialist.com or 561-967-4400. And by City National Bank, dedicated to redefining banking by providing personal relationships, local decisions, and best-in-class service. City National Bank. More information at citynational.com. The time is 7:35.
From the WLRN Miami Herald Newsroom, I'm Luis Hernandez. The convicted middle school killer Michael Hernandez will wait a few more months to learn if he gets a new prison sentence. Tuesday, Miami-Dade Circuit Judge John Schlesinger granted a defense motion for a continuance. This comes a day before a 3-day resentencing hearing. Hernandez received a mandatory life sentence for the stabbing death of Jamie Gaw in a middle school bathroom in 2004. Now, the new hearing was required after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that juveniles could not automatically be sentenced to life without a chance of parole. The Florida legislature later made that ruling retroactive. Well, it's been more than half a century since any musical artists living in Cuba have performed at the White House. But Los Cubanos will take the stage there Thursday night, and WLRN's Tim Padgett says many Americans will recognize the tunes. 18 years ago, a group of mostly elderly Cuban musicians known as the Buena Vista Social Club hit the top of the U.S. charts. Their 1997 album, Buena Vista Social Club, and a 1999 film by that name featured tracks like this elegant, haunting song called Chan Chan, and it introduced rich strains of Cuban music like son to millions of Americans cut off from the communist island by the U.S. embargo. So it's fitting that the Buena Vista Social Club will be the first Cuban group invited to play at the White House since the 1959 Cuban Revolution. As part of his effort to normalize U.S.-Cuba relations, President Obama has asked them to perform there October 15th to end their U.S. tour. This may not be welcomed by hardline Cuban exiles in South Florida. In 1998, a bomb threat forced the evacuation of a Miami performance by the late Buena Vista star Compay Segundo. But now the Buena Vista Social Club gets to play for the most exclusive audience on Earth. I'm Tim Padgett in Miami. A poll looking at social and political attitudes in Florida found that support for normalizing relations with Cuba is strong. 56% of adults questioned for the annual Sunshine Survey say they approve of the United States having diplomatic ties with the communist island. University of South Florida professor Susan McManus oversees the poll conducted this summer. At the same time, the U.S. Embassy was reopening in Havana. McManus says media coverage may have influenced attitudes.
26% still oppose it, but 18% really don't have an opinion one way or another, which is still kind of high considering the attention that the Cuba issue has gotten.
The survey found the strongest support for ties to Cuba came from communities with a large Hispanic population, including along the I-4 corridor and near Miami and Palm Beach. More than 1,200 adults were surveyed for the 5th annual poll conducted by USF and the Nielsen Company. Florida health officials are considering dropping a set of quality standards at 8 hospitals responsible for most of the children's heart procedures in the state. Naka Campbell says that's why she spent the 3rd anniversary of her daughter's death at a rulemaking hearing in Tallahassee. She says honoring the memory of 10-month-old Amelia, who died of complications following heart surgery at St. Mary's Medical Center in West Palm Beach.
I don't want anyone else to have to experience what I've experienced, but I feel sure now if they remove these standards or if things stay the way that they are where they're not mandates, I know this will happen again. I'm sure it will.
The Department of Health says it has no choice about abolishing the standards since the law behind them was abolished in 2001. The rule affects the Children's Medical Services Network, which serves kids with chronic and serious conditions. Dr. William Blanchard says it also affects parents like Campbell, whose children have complex medical conditions.
One has to trust that government, the state, professional societies, physicians, nurses, that we all believe in this one single high-quality standard for kids.
The rulemaking process has drawn opposition from a number of pediatric cardiologists. There is no deadline for the Department of Health to decide whether to drop the rule. This is WLRN Miami Herald News. I'm Luis Hernandez.
And I'm Peter J. along with Bonnie Berman and Wanda Miles, welcoming you to this edition of Morning Edition. It's our fall membership campaign, and I just want to send out a huge shout out and thanks to those who gave during our pre-drive campaign. And let me tell you something, you've made a big dent in this campaign and our goal for this campaign. We are in a very real position right now, as we were just discussing, Bonnie, where we, for the first time in many years, could end this drive early on air. I mean, this is not a fantasy now. This is most definitely reality. Courtesy of those of you who gave before the drive began on air today, and also courtesy of our sustaining members who give a prescribed amount every month. Because of you, we have knocked $100,000 off our goal for this fall campaign. So thank you, sustainers. Thank you, early givers. We still have some ground to cover here during our fall membership campaign. We'd love to hear from you now. It's affordable. You choose the amount you want to give. And Bonnie, how do they do that?
They call us. It's simple at 866-247-9576. That's 866-247-9576, or pledge online, WLRN.org. And one other note about you sustainers that have cut $100,000 off our goal, making it to $450 instead of $550,000. You're automatically entered into every one of our drawings. So we talk about the Aqua Wellness Resort vacation for 6 days in Nicaragua. You're entered into that drawing when you're just a sustaining member. We have a $500 Amazon gift card today only that we're giving away before or right after 1 o'clock when we suspend our pitching for today, our fundraising for today. You're entered into that as well. So please join we have so many people to thank, and we will thank you in just a moment. But the first thing is to make your donation as a sustainer or otherwise, 866-247-9576.
And there's more, as they say in late night TV. If you contribute right now, your pledge will be matched dollar for dollar. So here's another person and family to thank, the late Bernard Gewirtz. His estate left us the opportunity to double your pledge amount this morning, up to $10,000. That's right, dollar for dollar. Every dollar you give, you're giving $2, in effect, courtesy of the generosity of the family and the estate of Bernard Gewirtz. Make your pledge now. Get entered into the drawings. Become a sustaining member. Things are hot right now. The phones are ringing. We'd love to add you to the list here at 866-247-WLRN. That's the phone number, 866-247-9576. Or make that pledge online at WLRN.org.
We want to thank Maria in Vista Benton, wherever that is. It's in
some new towns this
Yes,
morning.
we do. It's either in Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, or Monroe County, because we cover all 4 of those counties. And we're glad to be hearing from Robin in Key West today.
Apparently we cover Ohio as well.
Loveland, Ohio. Daniel in Loveland, Ohio. Megan in Hollywood. And who else? Summerlin Key. Suzanne, thank you so much. Please join them. You'll feel great about it. We could end this fund drive early. Wouldn't that be nice?
And we will when we reach the goal.
When we reach $450,000, we're out of here. 866-247-9576. Help us out in whatever amount works for you online. It's WLRN.org. Thanks so much for your support.
And on this morning after the Democratic presidential debate, let's turn to a policy proposal from one high-profile Republican candidate. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush released his health care plan yesterday. It would repeal Obamacare. That is something Republicans have tried aggressively to do in Congress. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben is in the studio to talk about this. Danielle, good morning.
Hi.
Okay, so what are the basics of the Bush plan here?
So one thing, like you said, is that it repeals Obamacare. So it gets rid of the individual mandates. So you aren't required to have health coverage. It gets rid of employer mandates. And it gets rid of a lot of the requirements of what coverage looks like. A lot of the things that Obamacare said your health care plan should cover, this gets rid of a lot of those and says you can have a lot more very, very bare bones health care plans.
Okay, so Republicans have been complaining about those mandates for a long time. Those mandates the Obama administration says helped cover 17 million Americans who were not covered before Obamacare. What would happen to them under this plan?
We don't know exactly what will happen to them. Yes, Jeb Bush does say he will help people transition off of Obamacare, but there aren't the same requirements for people to get coverage. There aren't the same requirements for employers to provide coverage. So it's hard to see the same number of people having coverage under this plan as there are under Obamacare. Now, this plan does provide incentives. There are tax credits to try to help people get coverage, and if your employer doesn't provide you with health care, your employer can help you buy health care on the individual market. So yes, it will encourage some people in some ways to get coverage, but it also creates a lot of loopholes for you to not get coverage.
Well, of course, the spending has to be a big part of this, right? I mean, Republicans have been saying that healthcare spending in this country is completely out of control, and they've been working very hard to figure out ways to rein it in. Is that part of what's happening with this plan?
Yes, and healthcare spending, healthcare costs in the U.S. really are rising fast, and Jeb Bush's plan really is designed to address that. And I talked to a lot of healthcare experts on this yesterday, and what they all said is, yeah, on its face, it looks like this would cut healthcare spending in a lot of ways. It could cut the amount that the federal government spends on health care for low-income people. It wouldn't guarantee pre-existing condition coverage, which could cut some costs. And when you institute a lot of high-deductible plans, which this looks like it would, you also cut back on some health care usage. Now, in terms of the long-term effects, I mean, the long-term economic effects of any major policy overhaul like this are really hard to foresee.
You just don't know until years go by.
Right.
And just briefly, what about the timing here? Why does Bush put this proposal out right now during the Republican primary season?
First of all, it establishes his conservative bona fides, right? You know, of course, it repeals Obamacare, something that every conservative seems to want to do, and it hits all of the conservative high notes: reduced regulation, more power to the states. And not only that, but it could help him differentiate himself. Jeb Bush is really trying to establish himself as the policy wonk in the Republican field, and this could help him make a case for that.
All right, NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben. Thanks a lot, Danielle.
Thank you.
And you're listening to Morning Edition from NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR member stations and from McGladrey, audit, tax, and consulting advisors. Effective October 26th, McGladrey is changing its name to RSM, and its global network is unifying. RSM, experience the power of being understood. And from Staples, with shipping solutions for businesses, including packing supplies and associates who can provide packing services. Learn more at Staples and staples.com.
Peter J. with Bonnie
Staples,
Berman.
make more happen.
Thank you, Staples, for supporting NPR, and thank you for supporting WLRN. You've heard us say many times, support for WLRN comes from WLRN members, and what we mean by that is contributions during these fundraising campaigns and throughout the course of the year are how we gain the bulk of our funding to pay for programs like Morning Edition, where we're going to hear from StoryCorps founder David Isay about the Great Thanksgiving Listening. That's coming up in just a few moments on Morning Edition. Right now, the business we're taking care of is funding WLRN. It's our fall membership campaign, and there is so much going on that I'm going to toss it to you, Bob.
Okay, well, first let me just give you the number. If you've been listening and you've been maybe listening for a long time, maybe now is the time you want to take the plunge and feel great about supporting WLRN at WLRN.org or at 866-247-9576. Whatever amount works for you. How about a one-time donation of $225 will get you a pair of tickets to see Bob Newhart at the Parker Playhouse January 18th, 7:30 p.m. A hilarious evening of comedy, anecdotes, showbiz stories, and with that deadpan delivery and demeanor that's made him one of the most celebrated comedians in entertainment history. You can have a pair of tickets to see Bob Newhart. We only have 10 pairs, by the way. So take advantage of this $225 one-time donation. 2 tickets to see Bob Newhart at the Parker Playhouse. 866-247-9576. 866-247-WLRN or online WLRN.org.
We just about wore out the button-down mind of Bob Newhart album in our household way
it's
back in the
unbelievable.
60s. Yeah, the Amelia Earhart Airline and Screen Door Company.
Sir Walter Raleigh.
Yeah, right.
He'll be doing that.
Great stuff. Very, very cool. Hey, listen, your pledge is also doubled when you call right now. This morning, the generous family of Bernard Gewirtz and his estate responsible for offering a challenge grant of $10,000, and the amount you contribute up to that amount is doubled right now, so you can do that extra good and also get in on our drawings. Bonnie will tell you more about that in a moment. 866-247-9576, 866-247-WLRN or WLRN.org.
And we say drawings. I'll tell you
Yes,
about
indeed.
the first one that's only until 1 this afternoon when we suspend our on-air fundraising, which is a $500 Amazon gift card.
Yeah.
$500 Amazon gift card can be yours when you make your contribution at 866-247-9576. You may be the lucky winner. The good chance that you can come up with that $500 Amazon gift card. $5 a month, $10 a month, $120 one-time pledge. 866-247-9576.
Our grand prize for this fundraising event is a 6-night vacation for 2 at the Aqua Wellness Resort in beautiful Nicaragua, where you'll stay in a luxury tree house, have a daily full breakfast, $100 spa credit, and more. 866-247-9576.
Online, WLRN.org. We want to thank everyone who made that pledge of support prior to the start of the drive. We've never had such a successful pre-drive campaign. Thank you so much. So it didn't, we didn't get our goal of $450,000 so that we didn't have to do the pledge drive, but we made a huge dent in it thanks to your support. So please help us out. As soon as we make that $450,000, we are out of here. WLRN.org, 866-247-9576.
You can become part of the partnership that is public radio at KaufmanRossen.com.
The time is 7:52.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm David Green.
And I'm Renee Montaigne. StoryCorps. You hear it every Friday. It collects and preserves people's stories from around the country, and we share some of those stories here on Morning Edition.
Now, as families gather for Thanksgiving, StoryCorps is issuing a special call-out. Record an interview with one of your loved ones.
It's the Great Thanksgiving Listen. David Isay is the founder of StoryCorps. David, welcome.
Hi, Renee.
You, David Isay, and StoryCorps, you are looking, as you put it, to document an entire generation of American lives in a very ambitious way. And I guess what better time to make that happen than when different generations gather for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit crazy, and, there's no guarantee we can do this, but we released an app, our first StoryCorps app, a couple of months ago, which is kind of a digital facilitator, so that you can record an interview on your mobile device anytime, any place. And it's been amazing to see what's happened over the last 6 months. People picking this up from all over the country, and it's been really magnificent and incredibly moving to behold.
Well, I must say, though, when you're talking about technology, I love Airstream trailers, your trailers. But this mobile app really opens up the world. And what's interesting is you are talking about kids interviewing their grandparents or their elders or an elder that they care about. But is it just for teachers and kids? I mean, could someone hearing this who's interested in doing it do it themselves, or you want to save it for a particular group?
No, absolutely. Look, anybody can use the app anytime, and we'd love to have as many people record over Thanksgiving as possible. I mean, our goal is to try over that weekend to record as many interviews as we've recorded in the last dozen years. We've recorded about 65,000 interviews. It's the largest single collection of human voices ever gathered, and we want to double it. So this is easy to use for anybody, any age. I mean, it's very simple. It basically walks you through the interview process, lets you choose your questions, you choose how much time you want to spend recording, and then you hit record, and then at the end you take a selfie, and then you hit a button and it goes to the Library of Congress.
You've enlisted history teachers, and I'm curious if you're hoping that the elders, the people who are being interviewed about their lives and their experiences, will in some way bring in a bit more about the world around them as it was back then than they might otherwise.
Well, that happens in every StoryCorps interview. Because, history, we live through history. And what people are talking about in a StoryCorps interview are, the most important moments in their lives. The way this works is that we have a curriculum for teachers to download, and the teachers will spend a day in the classroom working with kids to figure out who they're going to interview and what they want to talk about. And certainly historical events are going to be a part of that. And I do think that, if we can pull this off, it will create a very powerful and important kind of bottom-up history through our voices or our family's voices and stories of the last 75, 80, 90 years of United States history. And I hope that that's part of what comes out of the Great Thanksgiving Listen.
David Isay is the founder of StoryCorps, and we've been talking about the Great Thanksgiving Listen. David, it's such a pleasure always to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, Renee. Thank you so much.
And it's easier than ever to be part of history. As we've just heard, you can record your story this Thanksgiving weekend. Go to npr.org and search Great Listen to find out how. That's Great Listen. This is NPR News.
From the WLRN Miami Herald Newsroom, I'm Luis Hernandez. Republican presidential candidate Jeb Bush says he would scrap the national health insurance law known as Obamacare. Bush outlined his plan during a speech in New Hampshire Tuesday. WLRN's John O'Connor reports Bush wants to give people more choices, but his plan is missing some big details.
Jeb Bush says people should only have to buy the health care coverage they want. He says insurance shouldn't cover everything.
That should be the national focus, making sure that people have catastrophic coverage so that their lives are not turned upside down by an adverse event that could have real devastation for their family. Whatever else people want insurance to cover, they'll be able to buy that.
Bush would eliminate all mandates from the current law. That means businesses wouldn't have to cover employees, and insurance companies could reject coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. Bush says he expects insurers to cover those people, but doesn't say how or how many people would lose coverage. Bush would encourage people to buy health insurance by offering tax credits, and everyone would receive the same tax credit regardless of income. Bush says his healthcare system would allow patients to understand prices easier, and doctors and hospitals would find ways to make care less expensive. I'm John O'Connor in Miami.
Ride-sharing services, including Uber and Lyft, are back in business in Broward County. Commissioners voted 6-2 yesterday, allowing for the apps to be turned back on. Broward County Mayor Tim Ryan says this is a win for Broward residents.
We made some progress in balancing the public's need to be protected and to ensure that the drivers have gone through a thorough background check. I'm satisfied that we made progress in that regard. So we're going to see what happens. They'll be on the road, and if there are problems with the insurance issues, hopefully they'll be worked out in Tallahassee in the coming months.
Representatives from Uber said they could have the app back up as soon as Thursday. This is WLRN Miami Herald News. I'm Luis Hernandez.
And I'm Peter J. along with Bonnie Berman and Wanda Miles. This morning edition on WLRN, a special fall membership campaign edition. And wow, things are rocking this morning, Bonnie.
They are.
Every time I look up, there's a new contribution. Thanks to Kamea from Miami, Rocchio maybe from Miami, Hari from Boca Raton, etc., etc., etc. Why are these people sending us money? Because they have put a price on the peace of mind knowing that every time they tune to WLRN, they're going to learn something new. So we ask you now, what's that peace of mind worth to you? And we hope you will join the many who have called or joined us online this morning with a contribution. There's so much to talk about here. It'll be tough to squeeze it all in, but we're going to try. First, I'm going to give you the phone number by which you can make your contribution. That's 866-247-9576. 866-247-WLRN. Online, it's WLRN.org.
And good morning to you. Peter just mentioned Hari in Boca, but I'm going to mention Robert in Boca and Susan in Boca and Claire in Boca and Ann in Lauderhill. Of course, we go all the way from Palm Beach down to the Keys. We've been hearing from all the counties this morning. Claire in Miami, thank you so much for your support. Please join them. $5 a month is fine with us on our Sustainer plan. $100 a month is fine with us. You become a Circle of Friends member. No matter the amount, you're supporting, you're listening, you're taking the plunge, you're feeling great about it. We know that. 866-247-9576 to join all your fellow WLRN lovers, or online, WLRN.org.
And thanks to Barbara and Kenneth in Miami, who we see are existing members who are kicking in a little extra this morning. We certainly encourage that behavior. We were just listening to David Isay, such a marvelous part of public radio, contributor to public radio, and talking about the National Day of Listening. And we will have our own version of that, a local version dedicated to the arts community, the day after Thanksgiving on that Friday here at noon at WLRN. Just another example of how we are a part of and supporting the South Florida community, and you're a part of that community and of that support when you contribute to WLRN at WLRN.org or 866-247-9576. Bonnie, pledges are doubled this morning, right?
They are doubled because we have a challenge grant in the amount of $10,000 from the estate of Bernard Gewurtz, and we want to thank his entire family and him belatedly or posthumously for his support and for making this possible. Your pledge is doubled. So all those pledges that we named, all those people, all those listeners who donated, their pledges are being matched. But just this morning, so please join them, 866-247-9576, WLRN.org.
And you'll be entered into our grand prize drawing for a 6-night vacation for two and our Amazon $500 gift card drawing if you join us now at 866-247-9576 or WLRN.org. NPR News headlines next here on South Florida's NPR News Station, 91.3 WLRN and HD1, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and the Palm Beaches, and 91.5 WKWM and HD1, Marathon, Key West. NPR for the Florida Keys. The time, 8:01.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The 5 Democratic presidential candidates held a debate in Las Vegas last night. Bernie Sanders, Martin O'Malley, Hillary Clinton, Lincoln Chafee, and Jim Webb focused on several substantive issues. These included climate change, gun control, and economic policy, among others. NPR's Tamara Keith says Hillary Clinton was questioned about foreign policy.
For Hillary Clinton in this debate, foreign policy was both a strength and a weakness. Her opponents questioned her vote on the Iraq War, which Clinton herself has said was a mistake. But then Clinton could talk about her time as Secretary of State, being one of the president's advisors in the Situation Room when the decision was made to do the Osama bin Laden raid.
Bernie Sanders also drew applause when he declared that Americans are sick and tired of all the attention on Clinton's private computer server and emails while she was Secretary of State. Israel is deploying hundreds of troops in Israeli cities today following increased violence. Yesterday, 3 Palestinians and 3 Israelis were killed in attacks. Israeli police can now seal off Palestinian neighborhoods. The BBC's Jeremy Bowen reports the Israeli cabinet met late last night.
The mayor of Jerusalem, Nir Barkat, joined the cabinet meeting and pushed successfully for powers to seal off Palestinian districts in East Jerusalem. Doing that won't be easy. Israel's position is that the entire city, including the occupied East, is part of its eternal capital. Years of measures to try to impose Israeli sovereignty on Palestinian districts have blurred the boundaries between neighborhoods. One senior official said the random nature of the attacks makes it harder to stop them.
The BBC's Jeremy Bowen reporting. The U.S. and Russia are expected to hold another round of talks today about air safety in the skies over Syria. NPR's Giles Snyder reports the two are said to be near an agreement.
The planned video conference will be the third between the U.S. and Russian militaries, and Defense Secretary Ash Carter says he expects an agreement soon. Army Colonel Steve Warren is the spokesman for the U.S.-led coalition fighting the Islamic State group. Speaking to Pentagon reporters from Baghdad, he said protocols need to be in place as the two sides carry out separate air campaigns.
There's always going to be some risk if there are uncoordinated actors in the battlespace. There's adds risk. There's simply no question about it.
Warren says there have been several incidents, including one over the weekend when U.S. and Russian aircraft got within miles of each other. Giles Snyder, NPR News, Washington.
News reports say there's been deadly bombings in northeastern Nigeria. The Associated Press reports at least 7 people were killed in the city of Maiduguri and several others were hurt. It's believed 3 suicide bombers set off devices. Boko Haram militants are suspected. Nigerian officials continue to insist they're closing in on the militants. This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Ozzy, a digital magazine dedicated to the new and the next, like a recent study that suggests a correlation between expensive weddings and shorter marriages. This and more at ozzy.com/NPR. That's OZY.com.
Hi, I'm Sammy Mack, and this is what your donation to WLRN pays for. The future of South Florida journalism. See, WLRN offers paid journalism internships throughout the year. And let me just say, these are not coffee-making internships. We equip our interns with the skills and the gear and the ethics to go out into the field and tell real stories. You might not have known it was an intern, but you have heard their stories on air. We get applications from across the country, but a lot of our interns are locals. They come to us with a diversity of experiences, they come from our communities, and they care about the kinds of stories that affect our lives here in South Florida. And here in the radio newsroom, we take pride. I take pride in supporting our future colleagues. So really, I'm not being hyperbolic here. Your donation is an investment in the future of journalism. Please support that important work. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Sammy Mack, and great to have you on our team here at WLRN Miami Herald News. Peter J., Bonnie Berman, a part of the team, too. And you know what? So are you. It's our fall membership campaign. Signing up as a member of WLRN is affordable because you choose the amount that's right for you. And I guess the question is this: if you had to put a price on the peace of mind, knowing that every time you tune to WLRN, you'll learn something new, what is that peace of mind worth to you? We're here to bring you that something new every morning, every midday, every afternoon, throughout the week. We hope you'll help support it, not only for yourself, but for all of us here in South Florida, with a contribution now. Do that in just a couple of minutes online at WLRN.org or by phone at 866-247-9576.
And we have so much to tell you about. We've been talking about it all morning, but perhaps you're just tuning in. So it's our fall membership campaign. When you make your contribution right now, you're automatically entered into our grand prize drawing, which is a 6-night vacation for 2 at the Aqua Wellness Resort in Nicaragua. It's been chosen by several publications as one of the top places to visit. We just like you to contribute what you can, whether that's $5 a month, $100 a month, or something in between. 866-247-9576, the number to make your contribution. Get entered into the drawing online, WLRN.org.
Today only, when we suspend fundraising at 1 p.m., we're going to give away a $500 Amazon gift card, and you're entered into that drawing automatically as well. Maybe the biggest news of the morning, Bonnie, is a $10,000 challenge grant from the estate of Bernard Gewirtz, offering to double your pledge amount dollar for dollar through the morning this morning. So no better time to get in them right now. And, you know, we get lots of comments from donors when they do contribute, and the one recently is that NPR is my primary source of news. Can you say that? I bet you can, and for good reason, too. You know the qualities of NPR News and WLRN News. You help make that possible. It's our most significant source of funding. That is you, listener contributions. Thanks to Miriam and Pembroke Pines for making yours.
866-247-9576 to join Miriam, or online, WLRN.org. When you make a one-time donation of $225, we will give you a pair of tickets to see one of the most celebrated comedians in entertainment history, Bob Newhart. He'll be at the Parker Playhouse January 18th, 7:30 p.m. The Bob Newhart Show. Newhart guest role is Professor Proton in The Big Bang Theory, for which he won an Emmy Award, and his deadpan delivery, some of his great sketches like Sir Walter Raleigh and the Submarine Commander. Anyway, all that, a pair of tickets, $225. It's doubled right now. You get entered into the drawing for the Amazon gift card of $500 and the trip to Nicaragua for 6 days. 866-247-9576, WLRN.org, and please continue to call during the news and morning edition. Thanks.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. Good morning, I'm David Green.
And I'm Renee Montagne. The Syrian battleground has taken a new turn, one that is also strangely familiar. Russian aircraft are bombing rebel positions, helping Syria's government troops rout those who are threatening the regime of Russia's ally, Bashar al-Assad. Meanwhile, in another part of Syria, American planes are striking the Islamic State and airdropping ammunition to help the rebel groups fighting them. As NPR's Tom Bowman reports, Syria could become like a number of countries during the Cold War, split between two superpowers.
The Obama administration keeps saying there's no military solution in Syria. So far, that's all that's happening. The U.S. and Russia aren't talking about forming a new government. They're talking about how to keep their warplanes from running into each other as they race toward their targets. The Russians are dropping dozens of bombs in rebel areas north of Damascus, and the rebels, some of them armed with American anti-tank weapons, are slowing the advance of Syrian forces. A small fraction of Russian airstrikes, say U.S. officials, are hitting Islamic State targets. Fred Hoff worked for the Obama administration on Syria policy. He's now at the Atlantic Council and says Russia's strategy is to leave only two fighters standing, Assad and ISIS, and then press the Americans to accept the lesser of two evils, Assad. And Hoff says that once Russia pacifies northwestern Syria, they could move south to attack American-backed rebels who want Assad out and hold a swath of the country south to the Jordanian border. The American move, now that they've abandoned a failed program to train moderate Syrian fighters, is to help another collection of established fighters, both Arabs and Kurds, on the other side of the country, who already have made gains on the battlefield. Their eventual goal is the Islamic State headquarters, the city of Raqqa, in the hope that the caliphate will start to wither. The result could be a country partitioned. In the Islamic State, they just put out an audio message calling for a holy war against Russia and America in what it calls their Crusader War. Tom Bowman, NPR News, Washington.
All right, Tom mentioned the views of one of President Obama's advisors on Syria. Let's bring in another voice here. It's Mary Beth Long. She was Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs during President George W. Bush's second term, and she's currently an advisor to NATO, and she is currently in our studios. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you, David.
So later today, Russian and U.S. military officials are going to be on this conference call, it sounds like, trying to agree on what the Pentagon is calling safety protocols, which I take to mean making sure that the two countries are not shooting at each other in Syria. Right. Is this a big risk here?
It is a big risk, particularly when it comes to deconfliction of airspace. One of the recent incidents that could have ended very badly was the Russian flight incursion into Turkey, which is, of course, is a NATO country. So deconfliction is actually a minimal measure that should be taken.
And deconfliction is basically what we're talking about. It's making sure there are not incidents between the two countries.
Making sure they're not firing at each other or flying into each other.
And you're saying that incursion into Turkey, we actually were getting close to what could have been a real significant event.
No, I'm not saying that we came close, but it certainly was very inflammatory. I mean, one does not fly into one's neighbor's airspace without permission, and without risking a response. And Russia has done that repeatedly, most recently in Turkey, but also in the U.S.
You know, there are these wire reports that are crossing this morning that Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is saying that the United States declined to send a delegation to Moscow to talk about deeper, ways to cooperate here. I mean, are these countries getting farther apart at a moment when they're both operating with military in the same space?
Yes, and that's the danger. Actually, we've been quite far apart, and I'm sure that the Russian invitation was ambiguously sincere. But, for example, the incident with State Department head Kerry last week in the UN, when Lavrov and the Russians came out and had a joint media presentation just hours after Russia surprised the United States and other countries by going into Syria. But those kinds of incidents, I think, really represent a deepening of the hostilities between the countries.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like just a few weeks ago, we were sort of talking about this, and it was being suggested that this all sort of sounded scary, but that the ultimate goal was sort of for Russia to find a strong position in negotiating the next steps in sort of a post-Assad Syria. Are things changing now? I mean, is this becoming sort of an entrenched military conflict involving two superpowers?
Well, I think we may have misunderstood it at the beginning. I think that's one of the real issues with this administration, that they've always underestimated Putin's move. And this is actually just one of recent things that President Putin has done in order not only to legitimately go after ISIS and other terrorist organizations that have impacts in Russia and to help Assad, but I think also to fill the void left by this administration, not only in the Middle East but elsewhere, and also to embarrass and make the United States look weak.
Let me ask you about goals. We heard in Tom's piece there a suggestion that what Russia is trying to do is basically to eliminate all of the anti-government groups, with the exception of ISIS, leaving basically ISIS and Assad as the two players in Syria and putting pressure on the United States to accept Assad. Do you agree with that as being Russia's sort of endgame here?
That may be their endgame, and if it is, it's foolish. Leaving Assad in place is clearly part of their endgame. I don't think Russia has any illusions that getting rid of everybody other than Assad and ISIS is a realistic goal. And in fact, ISIS represents a threat to them as well. So I wouldn't couch their goals that way. But what I would say is that we don't really know what their goals are. And despite all the conversations, the deconfliction and other conversations, we just don't understand. And I'm afraid the administration's underestimating them.
Just 10 or 15 seconds left. I mean, as Americans sort of think about the Cold War and how frightening that was, now we hear about Russia and the United States sort of being two sides of a military conflict in the Middle East. I mean, how frightened, how worried should we be?
We should be worried. We don't understand what's going on between Russia and Iran, and we don't understand what's going on in the region anymore. And we're certainly seen as the weak party.
That's former Assistant Secretary of Defense Mary Beth Long. She's also founder and CEO of the government consulting firm Meta Solutions. Thanks so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
And we're going to take a deeper dive now into last night's presidential debate as part of our regular campaign feature, Break It Down.
Where's the beef? When I hear your new ideas, I'm reminded of that ad. Where's the beef?
The Democratic presidential hopefuls tried to set themselves apart from one another, and there were some significant policy disagreements, including the area of gun control. NPR's Scott Horsley joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Renee.
Certainly, after that terrible massacre at the community college in Oregon, gun control is back on the front burner, and it's an issue that Hillary Clinton actually relishes.
That's right, because this is the unusual issue where Clinton can position herself to the left of her usual liberal challenger, Bernie Sanders. She criticized Sanders last night for voting against the Brady bill, which established background checks and a waiting period for gun buyers, and for supporting a 2005 law that shields gun makers and sellers from lawsuits over gun violence.
We have to look at the fact that we lose 90 people a day from gun violence. This has gone on too long, and it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA.
Now, Sanders, for his part, insists he's not carrying water for the National Rifle Association, and he does support some gun safety measures. But as a senator from Vermont, Sanders argues he has to represent his constituents.
I come from a rural state, and the views on gun control in rural states are different than in urban states, whether we like it or not.
Well, Scott, how is this whole argument going over?
Well, gun control is a polarizing issue. Nearly 3 out of 4 Democrats come down in support of gun control, whereas Republicans are much more likely to focus on gun rights. So Clinton is on solid ground at this point in the primary, but it could be a different story in the general election. Historically, Democratic White House hopefuls, including Barack Obama, have not campaigned aggressively on gun control for fear of losing votes in rural parts of the country. The question now is whether the party is effectively writing off those areas, so Clinton would have little to lose by deliberately courting pro-gun control voters.
And another issue where there are differences between the Democrats is bank regulation. This is one that former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley tried to capitalize on last night.
That's right, and Martin O'Malley has not made much of an impression on primary voters so far, so last night was a big opportunity for him. An issue he stressed is a proposal to break up big banks and rebuild the Depression-era firewall between commercial banking, that's where ordinary people put their savings accounts and maybe get a home or business loan, and the potentially riskier investment banking.
We need to separate the casino, speculative, mega bank gambling that we have to ensure with our money from the commercial banking, namely reinstating Glass-Steagall.
Now, the moderators in this CNN debate on Westwood One were too polite to point out that the debate itself was being held inside a casino in Las Vegas. But breaking up big banks is an article of faith with some progressive voters. The fear is those banks are too big, too risky, and will trigger another financial crisis. However, none of the institutions that helped trigger the last crisis, Lehman Brothers, AIG, Countrywide, none of those combined investment and commercial banking.
And where is Hillary Clinton on breaking up the banks?
Well, she does not want to go that far, and it's kind of like with Sanders on gun control. You could trace this back to her background as a senator from New York, a banking capital. She has proposed a tax on big banks, like President Obama, that could encourage some downsizing. However, President Obama's been pushing that tax for a number of years now, and so far, it hasn't gone anywhere.
Scott, thanks very much.
It's my pleasure, Renee.
That's NPR's Scott Horsley breaking down some of what came out of the Democrats' first debate last night. This is NPR News.
On 91.3 WLRN, good morning. I'm Peter J. with Bonnie Berman. Coming up, a very important story in 2 parts this morning. When people get injured on the job, they often apply for workers' compensation, but in certain states, receiving such benefits is becoming harder and harder, and we'll get all the details on that story coming up in just a moment. It's our fall membership campaign, and I'll bring you very quickly up to speed here. We had a pre-drive campaign during which listeners like you contributed a really generous amount and helped us make a big dent in our overall goal of $450,000 for this campaign. Now, because of that, there is a very real possibility, Bonnie, for the first time in many years, that we can and will end this campaign early and go back to regular programming. Right now, the onus is on you listening, because the sooner we get your contribution, the sooner we can wrap up this campaign. The number to call is 866 866-247-9576. 866-247-WLRN. Online it's WLRN.org.
And good morning to you. We're having a great morning thanks to all of you who are making your contributions now. It is really important that you make that contribution so, as Peter said, we can end this fund drive early.
Yes, we can.
Many
Si se
listeners,
puede.
yes, many listeners have started giving a little money to WLRN each month, either from their bank account or from on their credit card, rather than giving a bigger amount once a year. You become a sustaining member. You give a little each month. It's an affordable way to support all your favorite programs and make sure we have the money it takes to keep bringing them to you. Now, a big shout out to you sustainers, because you've cut $100,000 off our overall goal on this fund drive as a sustainer at $5 a month, $100 a month, or something in between. You also get entered into every one of our drawings in perpetuity as long as you're a sustaining member. So please become a sustaining member now. 866-247-9576. You can do so online at WLRN.org.
And you give us the opportunity to use the word perpetuity.
Yes,
That was like a Percy Dovetail. You know, the drawings Bonnie is referring to are pretty startling. One is a 6-night vacation for two in a luxury tree house at the Aqua Wellness Resort in Nicaragua. The accommodations, of course, included as our airfare, a full daily breakfast, and $100 spa credit, and lots of other activities involved in your stay there. If you're the winner, we're also giving away an Amazon gift card today in the amount of $500, and that drawing takes place when we suspend fundraising at 1 o'clock this afternoon. All great reasons to get in, and another as well, right, Bonnie?
Yes, we do, because, let me give you the number first. It's 866-247-9576. Online, it's WLRN.org, because we had a generous grant, challenge grant this morning from the estate of Bernard Gewirtz. It was a $10,000 matching grant. So for every pledge you give, $120, we get an extra $120. Well, guess what? We've almost reached that $10,000 goal. So that is great. Still matching that $10,000 though at 866-247-9576.
We're funded by WLRN members and by the risk management practice of MBAF, CPAs and advisors, helping management teams with complex technical accounting matters, as well as to create, modify, and evaluate internal controls. Learn more at mbafcpa.com.
This is 91.3 WLRN and 91.5 WKWM. I'm Wanda Miles. Florida International University offers students the ability to earn a healthcare MBA online. They can earn this nationally accredited degree in 18 months. This program is designed for healthcare professionals who want to seek a degree without interrupting their career. Learn more at fiuonline.com/healthcare. That's fiuonline.com/healthcare.
Support for NPR comes from NPR member stations. And from DreamWorks Pictures presenting Bridge of Spies, directed by Steven Spielberg. Tom Hanks stars as an ordinary man enlisted by the CIA to negotiate a high-stakes prisoner exchange during the height of the Cold War. In theaters everywhere this Friday. From Moo, working to help bring business stories and brands to life through a range of printed products like business cards, flyers, stickers, and postcards. Also offering design templates and the option to upload a personal design. More at moo.com. And from Rhodes Scholar, founder of National Lifelong Learning Day on October 15th, celebrating 40 years of educational travel adventures for adults with new research on living happier and healthier. More at roadscholar.org.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Renee Montaigne.
And I'm David Green. Good morning. Let's return to an issue we've been following very closely this year, workers' compensation. State-regulated systems are supposed to pay medical bills and lost wages when workers are injured on the job. Earlier this year, NPR and ProPublica reported that dozens of states have either cut workers' comp benefits or made them more difficult to get. And here's what's new this morning. Employers in 2 states are dumping out of workers' comp completely and providing fewer benefits. That's what NPR and ProPublica found after reviewing dozens of employer injury plans that replaced workers' comp. Here's NPR's Howard Burkus.
Bill Minnick says his Texas company PartnerSource has saved clients $1 billion, money they didn't have to spend on workers' compensation. They avoided expensive treatment and litigation and delayed medical care by opting out of workers' comp.
We can take care of injured workers more effectively
get them back to their families and to their work as productive members of society, save incredible amounts of money that create new jobs. That's what we do.
Some of Minnick's clients pay more for lost wages in their own workplace injury plans, but NPR and ProPublica reviewed more than 100 of these opt-out plans in Texas and Oklahoma, the two states that permit them. We found fewer benefits, tougher qualifying rules, even failures to comply with state law, regulators powerless to respond, and workers suffering as a result. In Oklahoma, 32-year-old Rachel Jenkins was injured at work in March. The single mother of four tried to protect a client from an attacker at a sheltered workshop for disabled adults.
We went down to the ground, and that's when I heard my back crack. I had to put all my strength into this man, and that's when I hurt my shoulder.
Jenkins worked for ResCare, one of 59 employers in Oklahoma who've opted out of workers' comp. They're supposed to provide the same forms of benefits, but NPR and ProPublica found major gaps, and Jenkins' experience is one example. If ResCare had workers' comp, she would have had 30 days to report her injury, but when Jenkins notified ResCare, she was told she was too late to qualify for benefits.
Because I didn't call the number within 24 hours. And I kept telling her, I went to the emergency room. They put me on some powerful medicine, but I was 2 or 3 hours late from calling the number. She just kept repeating that over and over. She was like, I understand you got 4 kids, but it's nothing I can do.
Bob Burke is Jenkins' attorney.
Everybody ought to report injuries quickly. But if they don't because a well-meaning employee thinks, this is going to go away, just giving the employer the right to deny all benefits, no matter how serious the injury is, because it was not reported to a toll-free number within 24 hours, I believe is wrong.
Almost all of Oklahoma's opt-out plans have reporting deadlines of 24 hours or less, and most are so similar because most were written by Bill Minnick's partner source. Minnick says employers can make exceptions, and in fact ResCare did that for Rachel Jenkins.
Simply by voicing the concern and by having the claim reviewed informally, it was determined that that was not a good denial. It was not fair to the injured worker.
Actually, co-workers complained to ResCare, and 16 days after the incident, the company agreed to provide benefits.
And so the system worked.
Well, not to Rachel Jenkins, given 16 days of pain while unable to afford treatment and worried about getting back to work.
I went through hell, a whole lot of pain where I was in tears. I was just thinking about how am I going to take care of my kids?
And we are going to hear the continuation of that story later in the hour here in Morning Edition on WLRN, a very important story about a long-standing opportunity for folks injured on the job that may be threatened or at least changing. So stay tuned for more of that coming up later in the hour here at Morning Edition. I'm Peter J. along with Bonnie Ben.
And we're here. It's our fall membership campaign. That's why we're here.
Yes.
And of course, we did have a pre-membership campaign fundraising effort, which we did very well. We want to thank everybody who pledged early. We've made a big dent in our overall goal of $450,000. And thanks to Mike in Miami, Pam in Miami Beach, Richard, Fort Lauderdale, Pearl, Aventura, Richard, David in Coral Gables, and all of you that we're hearing from this morning. We are doing so well to meet our overall goal of $450,000, and we end this pledge drive hopefully early. How do you do it? Well, you give as generously as you can at 866-247-9576, 866-247-9576, or online at WLRN.org.
Boy, would I love to wrap this campaign up early.
Today, hey.
We could do it. We could do it. And we almost did it before the drive, and thanks to those, again, who gave ahead of time. So we asked, how did you discover WLRN? Maybe a professor gave you an assignment that involved listening. Your roommate, your partner, your colleagues at work already listened. Maybe it was just borrowing your dad's car that led you to discover WLRN. Marcel Proust said that discovery consists not of seeking new lands, but of seeing with new eyes. And in the case of NPR News and WLRN, perhaps it's more accurate to say hearing with new ears. WLRN and NPR News, we're here for you to discover, because listeners who already knew about it valued it supported him. Now that you value what you hear on WLRN, it's time to join them. Make your financial contribution today at 866-247-WLRN. That's 866-247-9576 or online at WLRN.org.
And when you make that contribution, why not make it now and get entered into 2 drawings. One drawing, which we will do shortly after 1 this afternoon when we suspend pitching, is for a $500 Amazon gift card. A $500 Amazon gift card. That's only when you make your contribution this morning in any amount. Also, we have a grand prize drawing for a 6-night vacation for 2 people at the Aqua Wellness Resort in beautiful Nicaragua. That's a grand prize drawing for the entire pledge drive. Either way, all it takes is your contribution of $5 a month, $100 a month, or $20 a month, and whatever you can afford at 866-247-9576. Online, it's WLRN.org.
Hello, I'm Renee Montaigne. If WLRN counted on commercials for most of its income, it simply could not bring you the same amount of news each hour or the same level of breadth and quality in the reporting. The business model for public radio is not business, it's listener support. Listener-supported radio is radio that's about you, for you. We're here because you put us here. NPR and WLRN rely on listeners to keep the station on the air and worth listening to. Please, make your contribution now. Give online at WLRNradio.org.
Or by phone at 866-247-WLRN. Public radio, it brings you to places you weren't expecting to travel to and meet people you weren't expecting to meet. Whether it's traveling to the Middle East to hear from a citizen journalist using social media to bring democracy to their country, or meeting young artists residing right here in South Florida, WLRN's job is to bring you into the mix, to connect you with news, with arts, with culture, so you can have a better appreciation of the world around us. You've been thinking about becoming a WLRN member? Just do it. I know it seems good enough to just keep listening without supporting public radio, but the instant gratification when you finally do make the donation, well, you'll feel so much better, and it's pretty much instant gratification. And you'll get that gratification after about 2 minutes of your time online at WLRN.org or by phone at 866-247-9576.
And if you can give a one-time contribution of $225, we will thank you with a pair of tickets to see Bob Newhart at the Parker Playhouse, January 18th, 7:30 p.m. You know Bob Newhart. He's one of the most celebrated comedians in entertainment history. We only had 10 pair of tickets. We only have a few left. So if you want to take advantage of that, now would be the time to do it. Bob Newhart Show, Newhart, an Emmy Award for Professor Proton, Big Bang Theory, you know who he is. You can see him. We'll give you a pair of tickets for a $225 pledge when you call us at 866-247-9576 or pick up the tickets online at WLRN.org.
If you are an engineer or a construction professional looking to advance your career into managerial or leadership positions, FIU's one-year master's degrees conveniently offered in Broward are designed for working professionals looking to do just that. An information session will be held on October 15th at 6 p.m. at the FIU Engineering Center. More information can be found at dep.fiu.edu/professional or at 305-FIU-3701. Learn about the difference a year can make.
Support for NPR comes from NPR member stations and from Riverbed, the application performance company, used by 26,000 brands globally for application visibility, optimization, and control across an enterprise, working to help ensure apps perform at their peak. More at riverbed.com. And from CFP, on behalf of certified financial planner professionals, committed to the highest standard in personal financial advice to help plan for major life events and reaching financial goals at letsmakeaplan.org.
From October 14th to 18th, Seraphic Fire premieres a new work, The Hope of Loving, by the award-winning composer Jake Runestad, who is considered a choral rock star by American Public Media. This concert pairs this new work with a classic by commemorating the 200th anniversary of Schubert's Mass in G Major, using his original instrumentation. You can get your tickets by visiting seraphicfire.org or by calling 305-285-9060.
From the WLRN Miami Herald Newsroom, I'm Luis Hernandez. In Florida, Some students with developmental disabilities can stay in high school till they're 22 years old. This helps them earn a high school diploma. For many, that's the end of their formal education, but that may be changing. Jill Roberts tells us about a new college program at Florida Atlantic University aimed at these students.
Many high school seniors are already thinking of this time next year and college and all of the experiences that go with it. For some, that means a fall full of football games. But a portion of the student population has not had the option of following that particular dream.
They know that their brothers and sisters are going off to college, and so they have that same expectation for themselves.
Terry Harmon's son has Down syndrome. She's the executive director of the Gold Coast Down Syndrome organization in Palm Beach County. Harmon's son was able to attend a college program. It's in Jacksonville at the University of North Florida.
So he went to 4 years at UNF, and he asked to stay in Jacksonville when he was done. And so he's living in the community in an apartment, has supports, he's working, takes the connection transportation, and has friends with and without disabilities there.
Harmon's happy with the independent life her son now leads. Soon, more such students could have a similar opportunity through the Academy for Community Inclusion. It's a college program being developed at Florida Atlantic University. It'll be based at the college's Jupiter campus, where Mary Lou Duffy is a professor of exceptional student education.
And this program is a post-secondary program for students with developmental disabilities to offer them the option to attend college
and live on campus and earn not a diploma but a certificate and, of course, pay tuition. Duffy says eligible students will most likely have attended public schools.
The students need to have completed high school, meaning they've either gotten their certificate, option 1 diploma, certificate of attendance, but they are no longer working on the requirements for graduation.
The program will initially offer 3 certificates, according to Duffy, 1 in supported community living, 1 in community access, and 1 for employment.
There's work to be done to teach them how to manage those soft skills, how to be punctual, how to interact appropriately with others, good problem solving, what to do if. And then they move from a very on-campus kind of employment setting to a paid internship work experience off campus.
As we mentioned earlier, Duffy says the students will pay tuition. So while it may not be a part of the program officially, applying for financial aid could be a part of the FAU experience.
Because they are students at FAU first. They're members of this program second. So they'll do all they have to pay all those fees because they're part of the university, which is a cool thing.
There will, of course, be the normal student transitions, learning to do your own laundry and clean your own room. Their parents may also have some adjustments. Terry Harmon says when she had a son with Down syndrome, she figured she'd never be an empty nester.
I had 2 boys. I never made them do the laundry. But when they went away, they did the laundry. So when you're where you have to be to do it, when I'm living in the dorm, when I'm in my apartment, my son cooks. I mean, he cooks. He doesn't eat any fast food, any microwave meals. He cooks every day. He cooks.
Applications are being accepted for the Academy of Community Inclusion at FAU for the spring 2016 semester. I'm Jill Roberts in Fort Pierce.
This is WLRN Miami Herald News. I'm Luis Hernandez.
And part of the WLRN team, Wanda Miles, Peter J., Bonnie Berman, along with Caroline Brader-Watts, all here this morning, encouraging you to make your pledge during our fall membership campaign. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to pick up where we left off on the story about workmen's compensation in this country. Stay tuned for that all-important news and information. Yep, it comes to you every day, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, here, because listeners like you become members, and we thank you for that. So the number to call with your contribution, which we hope you will make right now, is 866-247-WLRN. Numerically, that's 866-247-9576. Good morning, Bonnie.
Good morning, and good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks so much for making your contributions. We're having just a stellar morning thanks to your energy and your contributions. When you make your donation now, remember you're automatically entered into our grand prize drawing for this entire membership campaign. It's a 6-night vacation for 2 people at the Aqua Wellness Resort, Eco Resort in Nicaragua. And it includes airfare, luxury accommodations, full breakfast, $100 spa credit, and much more. The important thing is to make your contribution in whatever amount is comfortable for you on our sustainer plan, or a one-time donation of, let's say, $100 or $125, and get entered into that drawing at 866-247-9576, or contribute online at WLRN.org. And we have another drawing, right, Peter?
We do. That's for a $500 Amazon gift card. We're giving away today. That's today only, so you want to jump on that. $500 in Amazon goodies. So, among the stars in our firmament of our stellar morning are Alana in Boca Raton, Nina in Miami Beach, Carrie in Surfside, Douglas and Lynn in my hometown of Hollywood. Thank you very much. We'd like to see more representation from Hollywood this morning. Paul in Margate, Orlando and Miami. The list goes on and on. Why are these people doing this at this hour of the morning? They're doing it because they realize that editorial independence, journalism that strives to connect to our heads without losing sight of our hearts, reporters who put events into context, these are hallmarks of WLRN's approach to news and public affairs, and these folks think that is worth supporting. If you do too, it's very easy, and it's also very affordable, because the amount is up to you. And Bonnie, folks can do this on our sustainer program too.
Absolutely. $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever works for you. 866-247-9576, WLRN.org, our sustainer program, where $5 a month is subtracted from your your checking account, or from your credit card company, or put on your credit card. And it's a very easy way to support WLRN, and there are so many benefits of it. For one thing, you give us support year-round. For another thing, you took $100,000 off our goal for this pledge drive. It's down to $450 from $550 because of your support. Number 3, you get entered into all the drawings we're talking about all the time. So if that works for you, and we're sure that it doesn't put a big dent in your income, 866-247-9576, WLRN.org.
And may I add, Robert has called from Hollywood, Florida, with a generous contribution. Thank you, Hollywood. We do appreciate it. Wherever you live in our listening area, we'd love to hear from you at 866-247-9576, or have that contribution from you online at WLRN.org. Thank you for your support.
It's not just reporting deadlines. NPR and ProPublica have found that most approved Oklahoma plans don't comply with state law. The law permits settlements that provide lump sum payments instead of years of benefits. These settlements must be voluntary, but they're mandatory in most of the plans. Employers decide when to settle and how much to pay, and if workers say no, they get no benefits. Attorney Bob Burke doesn't blame PartnerSource or ResCare for problems with Oklahoma's alternative to workers' comp.
My fight is with the insurance commissioner of Oklahoma, who approved that plan that clearly does not provide for the same benefits as required by statute.
So why were these plans approved? Gordon Amini is general counsel at the state insurance department.
It's my opinion that the insurance department does not have the statutory authority to disapprove or deny based on the content of the benefit plan.
So when the insurance department wrote employers and PartnerSource about problems in their plans, it focused almost exclusively on punctuation, spelling, language, and even formatting. That's what NPR and ProPublica found in hundreds of pages of agency emails. The agency didn't even notice mandatory settlements until we asked about them, according to Amini. Bill Minnick at PartnerSource says the plans will be revised, which Amini says the agency expects.
But it sounds like there's nobody who can make them do it.
The statute does provide an appeal process for denial of benefits that are not paid.
So it's up to the employees to enforce the validity of these plans.
It's up to the employee to enforce the requirements in regard to benefits, you bet.
Attorney Bob Burke is trying to get opt-out declared unconstitutional.
In every other area of the law, some government agency maintains accountability. It's asinine to think that any accountability factor would be put on the backs of the victim.
The harshest critics call opt-out a throwback to the industrial age before workers' compensation. But Oklahoma employers who opt out get to keep the biggest workers' comp benefit for them. They can't be sued for workplace accidents. As for Rachel Jenkins, she was eventually sent to an ear, nose, and throat specialist for her back and shoulder injuries. He was a qualified doctor, says a ResCare spokeswoman, and he referred Jenkins to an orthopedic specialist according to medical records, which show ResCare rejected that referral.
I'm still in pain to this day. I can't sleep at night. I need to see a doctor to really see what's going on with me.
And why aren't you doing that on your own?
Because I don't have the insurance and I don't have the money.
Opt-out is about a year old in Oklahoma. PartnerSource and state lawmakers promise adjustments, but there's no pause in spreading the opt-out gospel. A lobbying group is working in South Carolina and Tennessee. Bill Minnick envisions a dozen opt-out states by the end of the decade. Howard Burkus, NPR News.
Now we can tell you most Oklahoma opt-out plans were imported from the state of Texas, and tomorrow we will go to Texas where thousands of companies have rejected workers' compensation for decades. And you're listening to Morning Edition from NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR member stations and from the Kresge Foundation, expanding opportunities in America's cities through grant-making and social investing. More at kresge.org. From the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, helping people build measurably better lives, supporting efforts to make education more affordable for students and flexible for teachers through open educational resources. Online at hewlett.org. And from Americans for the Arts at americansforthearts.org.
Peter J. with Bonnie Berman wishing you a very pleasant good morning on this Wednesday and this edition of Morning Edition. We're in our fall membership campaign, our first day on air, and we've got really great news and a lot of thanks to offer. You probably heard that we had a pre-drive campaign on the air asking for contributions to help us eliminate the on-air portion of the drive. We didn't quite get to do that, but we did make a big enough dent that it's a distinct likelihood that we'll be able to end this drive early and go back to regular programming. Thank you. Thank you to our sustaining members who have contributed an amount that will that allowed us to reduce our goal for this drive by $100,000. Sustaining memberships are the future of public radio. We'd love to get your membership right now at whatever amount works for you. The number is 866-247-9576. That's 866-247-WLRN. Online, it's WLRN.org.
And good morning to you. How about a one-time donation of $225? These tickets are going fast, so now would be the time to take advantage of it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about a pair of tickets to see Emmy, Grammy, and Peabody Award winner Bob Newhart live at the Parker Playhouse January 18th. It'll be a hilarious evening of comedy, anecdote, showbiz stories told in his very deadpan fashion, which we love. And you may know him actually, if you don't know him from the Bob Newhart Show and Newhart, perhaps you know him as the guest role as Professor Proton in The Big Bang Theory, which he did win an Emmy Award. At any rate, he'll be at the Parker Playhouse for one night only. We have just a few pairs of tickets remaining. A one-time donation of $225 will give you a pair of those tickets. 866-247-9576. It's a great opportunity to support WLRN and see Bob Newhart. Do it online, WLRN.org.
Great venue, Parker Playhouse, too.
Yeah, I love it there.
I'm there frequently. Make your donation now. You know what? You'll also be entered into our grand prize drawing. If you haven't heard about this, check this out. 6 nights in a luxury treehouse. Yes, you heard me correctly. And that would be at the Aqua Wellness Resort in Nicaragua, now one of the hottest tropical eco-travel destinations. The prize includes airfare, those luxury treehouse accommodations, a full breakfast each day, $100 spa credit, and you can do your yoga on a platform overlooking the ocean as the sun sets. It's an unbelievable opportunity here. No donation is required, but we hope you will make a donation. You can't get entered unless you call 866-247-9576 or log on to WLRN.org.
And we have another drawing, and that's just for today. We suspend our fundraising activity at 1 this afternoon. Shortly after that, we will give away a $500 Amazon gift card. Sound good? Well, make your contribution, get entered into both of those drawings in whatever amount works for you, $5 a month or $100 a month. You become a Circle of Friends member, a very special group of significant support for WLRN. 866-247-9576 or pledge online at WLRN.org.
We are rocking this morning. The phones are ringing off the hook here. We've had recent contributions from Karen in Miami, Christina, thank you, from Delray Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Mary, thank you, Sandra in Miami, Cindy in Pompano Beach. You can join them and support this vital enterprise here in South Florida that we call public radio, NPR, WLRN, all made possible by listener support at 866-247-9576 or WLRN.org. We do thank you.
Good morning. This is 91.3 WLRN. I'm Wanda Miles. Welcome to Wednesday, October 14th. It is 79 degrees now. Today and tomorrow, the team of experts and researchers at Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center work to discover, develop, and deliver the most precise treatments for your specific cancer. And that can mean better outcomes and more hope. Learn more at sylvester.org. The time is 8:51.
We're funded by WLRN members and by Claro Development, a real estate development services firm providing owner's representation and project management. Claro specializes in construction and development risk mitigation focused on achieving the client's goals. More at clarocorp.com.
Master Chorale of South Florida presents Mozart's Requiem, one of the most endearing and lasting works of Mozart's vast repertoire, among the most frequently requested choral orchestral works of all time. The Requiem was Mozart's final composition, left unfinished when he died. Performances with the Sinfonia of Boca Raton and soloists are October 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Fort Lauderdale, Coral Gables, and Boca Raton. Tickets and information